Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, would like to welcome Governor Branstad. Governor, thank you for your testimony. I was proud when this process was going through the committee that the bipartisan amendment to block these cuts that I offered with Congressman Hunter from California passed with such strong support, and I really appreciate all that support from my colleagues. And I do appreciate the ranking member's kind words about the amendment. We know about the National Guard on Guam.
Yep.
It is absolutely a fantastic organization. I've been overseas with Representative Bordallo, and you'll never forget the importance of the National Guard on Guam, if you've ever been with her on one of these congressional delegations. Look, we all know that we're operating at a time of budget constraints. We also face threats from around the globe, as you mentioned. We really have to use taxpayer dollars as wisely as possible to protect our national security. And I'm really glad that you mentioned to that end that the Air National Guard provides 35% of the Air Force's capabilities with about 6% of its budget. I think that's an important point to make. And the 132nd Fighter Wing of the Iowa Air National Guard has been recognized, as you know, as the top F-16 unit in the country, and their overall cost per flying hour is the second lowest in the country. Yet they found out they were slated to see their F-16s retired and over 370 personnel cut while they were deployed in Afghanistan. That's amazing. And in 2008, when Iowa was hit with the worst natural disaster to ever affect our state, the 132nd was deployed to protect our communities. And as the Council of Governors and you, Governor Branstad, argued for months in discussion with the Department, the Air Force's proposed reductions would significantly affect the Governor's ability to respond to emergencies such as the one we experienced in 2008, not to mention 2 years later, as well, 3 years later. So, Governor, I would, if you could, outline in a little more detail, perhaps, what you think about the role of the National Guard in terms of homeland response, in terms of floods, other kinds of things that the National Guard is required to do domestically with respect to homeland security, and whether any of that was really taken into account by the Air Force when they made this decision.
It doesn't appear that they have really taken this into account. As I mentioned in my testimony, I've been governor a long time. I was governor back when we had the flood of '93, so I've been through a lot of disasters, floods, and now we're into a drought. So I'm going to go back to Iowa next week, and we're going to have meetings talking about the drought and the problems we're having, and you're aware of the damage that's
and you'll be in my district in Mount Pleasant.
Yes, I'm going to be in your district on Tuesday. And I would just say, you know, I go back with even to, and I mentioned last year we had all these people deployed, but then we also were fighting the flood along the Missouri River, and that went on and on and on from the 1st of June well into September. I can go back even a little further, the crash of Flight 232 in Sioux City. And in fact, the Air National Guard in Sioux City did the rescue. And there was a terrible tragedy, a terrible crash, but a lot of lives were saved. And it was so well managed because of their wonderful training and experience and whatever, that they made it into a movie. Charlton Heston played Captain Al Haynes in that movie. But that shows the important role that the Guard plays. And the same thing is with this unit, this fighter unit we have at the Des Moines Airport. They're the ones that provide security there. So if we have a crash or we have some incident at the Des Moines Airport, they're the ones that are there. They have the training and experience, and I'm sure they would do the same kind of job that the Air Guard did up in Sioux City back in the crash of Flight 232. So that's the reason why I think it's so important. And I don't think maybe there is we as governors are keenly aware of it, because the buck stops with us if it's a domestic situation. If it's a flood, a tornado, an ice storm or something like that, we have got to act to try to protect our citizens and do all that we can. But, and I like the Council of Governors concept, because of this now, we can have a dual role. And if we have a situation that affects more than one state, we can actually have, in addition to the Guard, we can even have reserve components that can help us with those kind of emergency situations. But I don't think the Air Force has got quite an appreciation for the important domestic role that these units are playing, and the personnel, and its medical, it's the generators and things like that that the Air Guard provides, in addition to obviously, the pilots.
Right. And then when they're transitioned from a Title 32 role to a Title 10 role, which we've seen, of course, over the course of the last 10 years, that's really critical as well. They need to take into account all the different functions that the Air Guard can perform, I believe.
And Governor,
Absolutely.
gentleman's time has expired, and
Mr.
I
Chair.
don't want to cut him off, but we've got to vote, we've got to run to. Governor, it's probably going to take us about an hour, and I understand you have a hard stop at 12:30. So we want to thank you for being here and for all of your help. And if you have to leave, we understand. We'll be starting our next panel right after these votes if you can't hang around.
Well, General Timothy Orr, who's my Adjutant General, will be here. He has more of the details and knowledge on this than I have. So I think and General Lowenberg, and they're really partners on this. So you'll get a chance to hear from General Lowenberg in the next panel. Thank you very much.
We thank you for your service and for being here with us. And with that, we're going to stand in recess until after the votes.